Salem Township Planning Commission meeting, December 20th, 2021. Call the meeting to order at 7:30. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a roll call.
Roll call. Pam Marlowe,
Here.
Daniel Vigeri,
Here.
TJ McLaughlin,
Here.
Kevin Frost here, Daniel Vingowski, Daryl, Bart Camp,
Here.
Robert Rizzle,
Here.
Okay, thanks everyone. Approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for December 20th, 2021.
I second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted for December 20, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Public comment? None? Oh,
Comment later when you get to the zoning, to the solar and that sort of stuff?
we got a small group. We can do what we want. No.
Never.
You know where we live. Okay. Chairperson comment? None.
You don't wish us all Merry Christmas or anything?
That's at the end.
Ah, saving it, huh?
That's right.
All right.
New business items. Okay. The draft zoning amendment for single-family house standards. Not too many changes. I'm sure we've all read this, so there's probably not really anything to review. It's very short, very sweet, redlined. And actually, the only comment I had was a little spelling error on page 2, under 7. It said sings and should probably signs. That's it.
If you're gonna get picky, compliance.
What's that?
Compliance is also.
Oh, compliance, yes. I missed that one. Thank you.
How do you know the zoning administrator doesn't want to sing off on these things?
We want the zoning administrator to sing on everything. A little duplication in number 1, shall meet, shall conform. But, anybody have any questions on that? No? No? Okay, no discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
What was the motivation for the roof pitch?
While we were looking at this, we compared it to other similar ordinances, and that was a consistent requirement in order for homes to meet kind of similar standards to stick-built homes in the district. So that was something that had been desired, was to include as many standards in this section that would make all homes kind of have similar conformities to stick-built homes in the outside of mobile home parks, if you will.
So the reason was so it didn't look like something like a mobile home
That's my understanding of why these ordinances have been put in place, and the intent is to make sure that homes in the neighborhood, in a single-family neighborhood, have consistency throughout.
So if a person, we have a neighbor that has their house is built into the side of the hill. Their roof is dirt and grass and plants of the field. So that wouldn't be allowed.
It would be allowed,
Yeah.
with
That's-
certain,
That's
somewhere else is
that's
allowed.
further, yeah,
That's further in? Okay.
so.
Okay,
Page,
so it's because of the look, it's not because of the function, nothing that can be measured, it's literally just because of the look. You know that I'm gonna do this, Paul.
yeah.
You know I'm gonna ask these questions. Because, not just because I'm interested, because I want us to be able to defend them as well.
Yes.
If someone walks in here and says, why? We say, well, because in wind shear situations, having that triangulation up there keeps the walls from collapsing. Or for ice loading, we've seen that no one ever builds a flat roof correct, and that people end up getting injured.
Yep.
We've gotta be able to back
No-
up something
Number
like
one
this.
deals with those issues. So the first item there, conforming with the state construction code, deals with those issues.
Okay.
The rest is aesthetics.
State construction code allows flat roofs.
The rest is aesthetics.
Paul, just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Reading that, I didn't realize, but 1,200 square feet is the minimum home that you can build in Salem, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that has not changed. That's been.
Okay.
been part of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, I'm
Is there
sorry.
any other thoughts on the roof pitch? I mean, people just, it has to look like every other house around, so therefore your pitch must be 3 on 12 or better. I don't think a 3 on 12 pitch looks like an 8 on 12. They look completely different to me. They do not conform to each other. There's my argument. So why don't we say everything has to be just like the house next to it? Guys, what I'm constantly trying to do here, and now I've had 2 months to build this up, is to be able to justify why we say or do something. When we talk about, oh, we don't want this, my words are, we need to fight the battle head on. If we don't like the way something looks, then we come up with something that addresses the looks. If we, you know, and be able to justify it and put it behind. I don't know.
I feel,
So-
I don't.
I think the one, go ahead.
So what are you trying to say is that 312, I mean, you wouldn't want to live in a house with a 312 pitch anyways, because it would snow and everything else would be on it. It would never melt off. I mean, it would just take a while.
I
So-
know plenty of barns and barn dominiums that are built with a 3 on 12.
No, I'm just trying to get what your point is, that's,
Why are we restricting it? That is literally my question. What does it matter to us? Why do we care? How do we measure that and say that is okay, anything less isn't, anything more is?
Does it have to do
And-
with trailers or mobile homes?
And I was told it's just because of aesthetics.
So many of these items, like taking, the tongue and hitch off of the thing, putting it on a foundation, putting a skirting on the bottom, those are all designed to make pre-manufactured homes or trailers look more similar to a stick-built home. And that was the explanation that I gave at the beginning. If you guys don't want to do that, it's up to you.
Yeah.
I take my direction from the township, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue.
Well, yeah, no, and Paul, absolutely respect that, and I get it, and I understand. It's not you, it's you doing, just putting something down. What I'm doing is, I'm challenging this group. I'm just talking to you apparently.
Fair enough.
So a guy wants to move here, he wants to buy 100 acres, he's gonna do this, that, and the other in the township, and his dream is to build a 2 on 12 pitch roof house that, is a shed roof 2 on 12, because he just has these memories or whatever, and he wants to do that, and we say, well, no, you can't do that here in the township. He says, okay, I'm going over to Northfield. Really?
Yeah,
Really? Because of,
it wouldn't be for his benefit to go to a 312 versus a 212, or even go more? It is not to his benefit, then you're saying?
I'm just saying, why do we restrict it?
For the same reason we restrict the size of the house. I know I fought that years ago 'cause
Do you know where a
I
house
thought
is?
they should be able to be smaller than 1,200, but I was told that was the thing about keeping people from buying property and just plopping down a mobile home by making it that size,
Hey,
so.
Paul?
I'm like, Okay.
So
How
it's
is
the
that- how is-
aesthetics of the community, I
How-
think, is what.
How is a house's square foot measured?
I'm sorry?
How is a house's
wait a minute.
square foot, how is a
Wait a minute,
house's square
Bart,
foot
Bart,
measured?
why are we going into this depth of that kind of question, just out of curiosity?
Because a house is measured, from what I understand, by the roof overhang, to the exterior of
Okay,
the
but
roof
that
overhang.
has been
So I can
in
put a
here
mobile
for a
home with a
long time, and
24
your
foot wide
original
roof
discussion
over
was the roof.
Okay, forget,
So
it.
we're
Okay,
back
let's
to
just
the
go back to
roof.
312, that's fine, 3 knocks, let's go back to 312.
So if there's something in here that you're not happy about,
I
is
would like
if
to,
it's just an extreme, if it's an extreme view, and like we said, we have to have rules. We can't sit here and say, we can't have any rules, everybody wants to do what they want. We can't.
Right.
Yeah, you
We
totally
have
agree.
to have something that is in moderation. And I think what he's trying to say is because he was asked to put something together where
Mhm.
we did not have people plopping trailer parks, or, trailers in here. Was that the gist of it?
so then, I'll
And
go
so
back,
what-
I'll
so
go back
what
to my
we're
sign
doing
language,
tonight,
put it straight ahead and say trailers can go in a trailer park designated zone, done.
But but you can't do that. So if somebody has a trailer or modular, and they wanna modify it to make it look in keeping of the community, then that's actually okay. Does that make sense?
There are the rules.
So a modular is allowed if they put a 312 on there?
Only if it meets building codes.
Meets building codes and these other standards, right? So to answer your question about the floor area, that's the floor area, it's interior, it's not the roof overhang. You measure setbacks to the roof overhang, but the floor area is actually the space within the
When
walls.
you're buying square footage of a house, you pay for a porch.
That, what you pay for when you're buying a house is different than the way we measure square
Okay,
footage.
then do we define that somewhere? I'm just honestly asking, do we define that
I
somewhere?
believe that is.
Okay, then I make sure we define that somewhere and there's not any discrepancy, just so we, we're
Right.
clear.
No,
So,
cool.
great.
Bonnie, or,
Yes, I'd like to know, I'd like to go back to number 1 on this list where the first red mark was, it says each dwelling shall conform, on and on and on. And then it ends in determined by the building official. Who is the building official?
Dave Harriman.
I'm on two-family standards.
Dave Harriman is our building official.
I beg your pardon?
Dave Harriman is our building official.
Dave Thurman?
He's the one who signs off on all the building permits.
The inspector.
Yes.
Okay,
has he been here for like 20 years?
Yeah.
He's the one, he's only part-time, he used to be only part-time, you don't get him once in a great while.
I've been here for 26
He
years.
works for another township.
I think he works for South Line
so a
too.
modular home doesn't meet these state codes? Because of the way it's built, the actual construction?
Possible.
Within a mobile home park, they are subject to the mobile home code. Outside of the mobile home park, you can apply different standards, is my understanding.
Right, so it would have to meet a state code, so outside of the mobile home park, it would have to meet a state code, so that would keep that from happening. So you've addressed that, you fought that, you said, we don't want these outside of these areas, that stops it.
Well, they can be placed outside of it if they meet these standards, and then there are additional standards that ordinances can and do place on those trailers, mobile homes, modular homes, pre-manufactured homes. There are many names for these things, but
Yeah.
not everything is stick-built in place. So these are the standards for something that is not stick-built. Well, for even what is stick-built in place has to meet these standards as well.
I'm for taking it out.
I'm for moving on. I'm okay with it. I think it's raising the bar for the Hamlet area or for Salem Township, and I'm okay with it. TJ?
Yeah, how often have we gotten a request for building a home with a flat roof or a less than 312? in the past 5 years, for example?
We have had a handful of non-traditional homes proposed in the last couple of years. It's not frequent,
But those are sometimes approved as long as they meet other standards,
well, there are
right?
setback and screening and requirements like that,
Right.
so they can be.
Kevin?
No, I don't, I think you don't wanna build anything less than a 312, you're just asking for problems down the homeowner is asking for problems down the road, so I think we should have something like this in here,
Okay.
because it's just.
Now, I tell you what, I like that reasoning. He gave a reason behind it that has been recorded there that says, hey, we're
He's a
trying to
are
do
you a
that
builder?
because of, yeah, and,
Right?
I've been doing construction since 1977.
yeah,
Okay.
so there's.
So you want a different answer out of me? You're not gonna get one.
Well, that's
All right.
But, you know.
Okay, well,
I
if you
just-
got an answer and that satisfies you, and now this document makes sense,
No,
Bart, that's a good
I
thing.
applauded him for having an answer, but I guarantee I could build a flat roof that could withstand everything. I've installed flat roofs, we're allowed commercial buildings with flat roofs. I grew up, the first house I lived in had a flat roof, Mountain Road, Pleasant Valley, New York.
Oh, that explains it all.
That explains it all.
Okay, all right. Yes, Miss Bonnie?
Well, I'm not very rich, and I'm gonna build a house, and I'm gonna build one story with a flat roof. And I'm waiting to gather up a little more money, and then I'm gonna build a second story, and I'm put one of your, I'll put all four, because that's a better picture here. But I'm gonna put the roof on later. Are you gonna stop me from doing that?
Dave Harriman is.
No, I-
The first story while I get the second.
Yeah.
Well, Bonnie, the beauty of it is, I mean, there's a way you can come to the zoning order with an appeal and say, hey, I want to get an appeal to this, I want to be approved for this under these conditions, and, you know, you gather the group together, you pay some money, you have your little hearing, and you can get it passed. So there is a method around it, but what I'm saying is this the way, this isn't the real thing, this is just a way I see us starting to think around here. This isn't the main, this isn't the hill I'm gonna die on type of thing. It's just a symptom. Salem is Salem. It's not Northville. It's not Plymouth.
It's gonna be pretty soon. Can I ask
Well,
the zoning commissioner?
And so maybe the question is do we wanna
Zoning
become Northville or
administrator
Plymouth?
is-
That's Paul.
Have you heard of show stack?
Yeah.
Okay. Move on.
Yes, absolutely. TJ?
You are administrator.
Okay, so if someone comes with house plans for, I mean, a beautiful $1 million Frank Lloyd Wright style home that has a flat roof, but those flat roofs are designed properly so that they drain properly, there's, you know, no reason not to have that.
You
Are
mean
they
according
just
to
not
code?
gonna be allowed, or are there circumstances which it would still be
That's a
approved?
good question.
There are circumstances under which it would be approved, and those are further down in this section. So we've had questions.
To me, there'd be no reason
no,
to,
it's good.
they're beautiful homes.
Right.
Um,
So we have had people come with proposals for unique homes, like the earthen berm homes and that
yeah.
kind of thing. And so those are permitted under these circumstances.
On page 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it is permitted?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any concerns with that document up here first?
No.
Okay. Mr. Kress?
Two things. Number one, Bart is just reflecting, I think, the current state of concern about the fact that government is making an infinite number of regulations in order to impose specific standards on people that they may or may not want to apply or comply with. And so you're trying to control their lives by having a gazillion different standards that they have to meet. And you just have to be careful about that. And as Bart has said, you have to have rational responses to questions about why the heck do I have to do this? And the rational response you got was from Kevin. Yeah, and I don't know if that needs to be incorporated in the document or the notes associated with the document, but you need to have a record of that.
So you're saying we need to have a justification of why that is,
Yeah.
why that is the way it is.
No, quite honestly, I don't see us needing to. I don't, there's nothing that says.
But
if
is
it
that what, is
passes,
that what
if-
you just said?
If we, well, if we
Okay,
propose
so he said
this,
it is.
if we, well, we could say every house could be purple. And we could propose that and put it in front of the board, and if they approve it, well, guess what? Every house has to be purple.
Okay.
You know, that's what I'm saying, we don't,
So ultimately, you do not need to include the rationale in a zoning amendment. Ultimately, it should reflect a true governmental purpose. If you were at some point taken to task by a developer or a homeowner, and they had the wherewithal to try to, take legal action against the township, you would have to be able to defend it. I think that rules like this there is precedent in state legislation that allows for these kinds of rules. I don't think that somebody trying to sue the township would have a leg to stand on. He has a good point. We do have to have justification for it.
Sure.
I think that there is precedent set for this kind of thing. So I don't think that you're gonna be in any kind of legal hot water if this goes forward, the board approves it. I appreciate.
I also
what you're-
agree.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I think that,
Yeah, I mean, we passed it in a proper manner according to our own bylaws, et cetera, et cetera. But my question is why do we wanna do it?
I think because he already said to kind of, the request was for the aesthetic value. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, actually, what we're doing is we're benchmarking against other communities. And it's kind of the accepted standard, these rules that we're passing are accepted standards, tried and true in many other communities. We aren't doing anything outrageous. We're not talking about purple roofs or purple houses or any of that kind of stuff. We're talking about standardizing things, at least have some kind of a form of rules that people can look at, make sense. And guess what? Our explanation is these have been tried and true in other communities. They're nothing, we're not inventing the wheel. A lot of our language is boilerplate.
And Bart, please don't mistake our trying to, I don't think there's one person up here or in this audience that wants to just create a bunch of rules for people to abide by. Quite frankly, generally, I don't really care what anybody does. However, we have a responsibility that we have been asked and have accepted to create a moderation for our community, to create a basic vision and to help plan out so we don't become a Canton, so we don't become a Plymouth or don't become a Plymouth. Not that those are or Northville, not because those are bad places, but because we like it the way it is. We like it. But what is happening is sometimes is the bar, when you have no rules, people keep coming in and pushing the boundaries more and more, so therefore we have to create some sort of middle ground for people, and that they've got some sort of, this is the way I see it, and they've got some sort of a great idea or something that's cool that makes sense, well then bring it up, bring it to the Board of Appeals or something like that, and do that, but we can't be everything for everybody. We just can't, and we can't function as a board on all the fringes or the extremes. But it's good that you bring these things up to, see, I read this and I understood. I may not have been able to verbalize it or communicate it very well. It's not my bag. I shouldn't say that as the planning chairperson. However, I understood what was going on. I understood the big picture and the role of it.
if a manufactured home is not the code, and we don't allow homes that don't pass state code outside of a trailer home park or a designated area, doesn't that do it? Doesn't that do it? And
I think it's not, but we
It's,
want to be able to allow those things as long as they raise the bar. Go ahead.
You know, I've served in various capacities here in the township and have the luxury of being able to go out and take a look at people building things. Some people get pretty carried away. I'm gonna tell you, pretty carried away. And so I think we need to have some standardized rules. Because people do, you can't believe, some people are kind of eccentric. They get crazy ideas. And you can't believe it, I wouldn't waste your time tonight, but I've seen some pretty crazy ideas in this township. And we need to have rules. I believe in rules, I really do. I don't believe in restricting people. This is a rural area. I'm all for keeping it a rural area as much as we can, but we gotta have some rules. Just, you can't, society doesn't exist without rules.
Kevin? You have a comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Just a simple thing. One of the purposes of the standards is so that this stuff can be passed through with administrative approval, not every garage being built brought to the planning commission for approval on what they're doing. Again, for our office or building department here to approve a set of plans, it's a lot less expensive to the township if they have a set of rules to follow. If it doesn't meet those rules, then we can then start adding extra costs by coming and seeing does it meet the engineering requirements and things. For both me as a
so if they come
homeowner
and
going to
say-
build and our township as having to pay the bills, because we have to pay someone to review these drawings and see that they meet engineering
Yeah.
standards, et cetera. So it's just a standard that our office can work off of before bringing it to the board.
Right, and that's what state code is. That's what a sealed stamped
Well, we-
inspection of a home with whatever pitch
We
roof
have a
they
master
want
plan here,
is.
we have a master plan as well, it tells us that we'd like our township to look like ABC, and that's part of that master plan is
We
that
do.
we have a look. So it's just part of all that things, that if it meets all these requirements, Paul and Ann can pass it and the builder can start building. We don't have to bring it to the board. I'm just looking at what, I get to see the costs and the expenses, and it's much more effective for both me and when I go to build the house, or our township, if there's a set of rules and we've met those rules, then it's okay to keep going.
And until we put something down for what a roof pitch is, the roof pitch can be whatever it wants as long as it passes state code, and that's pretty easy to understand in my book.
Well, I think Salem likes to do what it likes to do, so, and create what it likes to create, right? We don't
I'm
want-
sorry if I took you down a rabbit hole here, guys. It's,
No, it's all right.
what I've been trying to do here over this past year with the challenge that was given to me is to help us realize what we're doing. And it's, we hear the word, I like this, I don't like these things, and that's why I'm doing this. We gotta take the I's and means right out of this meeting. Forget about your opinion of what you like, or what you don't like, or what you think should happen, or what you don't should happen. No, it's for the good of this township. That is what we stood there and did.
But we also
So-
cannot, we also could debate the one out of the 1,000, the one out of the 10,000 things that might come up, and we'll never leave this place.
I
ever.
understand, and that's
And
the
that
attitude,
serves
that's why I'm saying, let's just keep moving
absolutely
on. This-
and we get nothing
This,
done.
this was the example and the symptom, not the root, so. Good to go, thank you.
Well, we can all vote on it, I mean,
No,
I gave plenty of my opinion, but
that's
I'm 1
fine.
out of 7, right? So, I mean, everybody can vote the next time we see it. Okay, I think we're done with that, so now let's go to
Stick a fork
something
in it, it's done.
fairly simple. Our calendar. So essentially, we are on a regular schedule, as we always are, with the exception of January, February, because of President's Day and Martin Luther King holiday, they push us back a week, so that's what these dates reflect. Yeah, we do have to vote on it, that's why it's,
Can I ask a question?
certainly.
Meeting.
The 18th of April, no effect on tax.
You've got, in your packet,
I've got the old one.
there's,
And
Okay, I'm just looking at it.
21st
Yeah,
of
it's
November, Thanksgiving week,
I'm sorry.
the 21st of November is Thanksgiving week. That's not a problem with nobody, yeah. Okay, fine.
February 28th is my anniversary, but I'm gonna choose to come here and spend my evening with you.
All right.
Because I love all of you.
That won't be hard.
Yes.
Hey, Paul,
Just one question. That house that they're building in North Territorial, just west of Curtis Road on the south side, is that a flat roof he's got on there?
North Territorial, west.
The big one looks like an office building.
His name is
Yeah.
Mike something.
Oh,
House
Butcher.
house.
Butcher.
I can't recall. I'd have to look at the,
Is that a flat roof that he has on that?
It looks like
I
from the
think it
road,
is.
that it looks like he built the house around the house.
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
From the outside, it does look like that.
It looks like a flat roof, doesn't it?
But
But a
it,
brand new building over there. Okay.
If you see it
He's the
from
one-
Curtis Road, it's, the roof line from the side is kind of noticeably sloped to the back.
A flat roof is not flat, just so you know. Flat roof houses
But
are
I'm
about
just saying,
2-3
that's
pitch,
the way I
2
see it.
degree, you know, 2 or 3 degrees.
That, I believe that gentleman's had his own issues with the building or zoning department, so.
How big is this house? How many square foot is that? Guess. 6,000?
No idea.
That's a lot of taxes he's paying this township. Just guessing.
Those plans were developed a year or more ago.
Okay.
Okay. So, are there any questions on the schedule?
Pam, you want a motion?
Yes, please.
Like, make a motion on the, 2022 calendar schedule for the planning commission, as submitted.
I second.
All those in favor of approving the 2022 regular meeting schedule for the Salem Township Planning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Okay.
Okay. Now to the fun part. Old business items. The draft zoning ordinance of the solar energy conversion system, just a discussion, once again. Same as the other one. So we give Paul a little more guidance.
Could I just jump in for just a second?
Oh,
here?
certainly.
I may have a wrong agenda.
Okay,
Should the meeting date change be part of new business items on the agenda? I do not see it on the agenda I have.
oh,
So I'm not sure if we should change the meeting
got another
minutes
one?
to say this should be on.
oh,
Yeah.
Okay, I
It
have two
was
copies in
changed.
the right agenda.
Yeah, no.
Okay, no, that's fine. All right.
Yeah,
That's
one was
all I
amended.
wanted to know.
The second one was amended.
I did not want to let us go against Robert's rules of whatever.
yeah, you know what a strickler I am to that.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. Solar energy, so we'll start with the solar one. Man,
Would you like me to give you a little update?
so, I'll just tell you, I went through this, and, I had more questions in regards to having probably a better understanding. By the time I got to the end of both of them, I was better, but yes, what, did you guys need an overview, or if you read it, you're ready to go?
Yeah, we read it.
Ready to go? Okay, you guys read it, ready to go, right?
You ready to go with some discussion?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
okay, so, I guess, I don't know, the way we've done this in the past, I think we kind of moved right along, and so if we just kind of went page by page, I have nothing on the first page. Did anybody have any questions or concerns, or anything you wanted to bring up in the first couple of pages?
I just thought, under section 60.32, so the solar collection system, whether it's on the roof or it's on the ground, or ground mounted is going to be considered an accessory structure, so they'll be taxed on that now? Or not?
I don't know how the assessor would tax
It's an
solar.
accessory structure, a ground mounted solar system.
That's the way we would treat it for purposes of zoning, not necessarily assessing.
Okay.
Oftentimes assessing standards are
Different?
different, yes.
Okay.
I know there was a big controversy in the city of Ann Arbor where the assessor was actually taxing roof-mounted solar as an improvement, and so that was kind of a whole ordeal. I don't know if they fixed that at this point, but my point is that what the assessor does is different than what we do on the zone.
Okay. We'd hope it would be taxed, but we don't know at this point.
Oh, my question is, why is it an accessory?
Because the principal use would be a residential use or a commercial use, and this would be considered accessory, a permitted accessory use to those principal uses.
Okay, so I guess my thought is, you know, my air conditioner sits outside and it provides a residential use, but it's not considered an accessory. I guess that's what I was comparing to, so I didn't understand what the difference is.
So
I mean, if I gotta choose between a shed or a solar doohickey or wind thing,
So the size, the height, the height, the size, the width of a solar array for a standard single-family home is much larger than a air conditioner. So an air conditioner is, you know, something that sits like this right next to the home. Solar array is usually something that is the size of a shed or larger that sits farther out into the yard, and so that's why they're typically treated like accessory structures. You don't have to.
right?
You don't
I
have
was looking at it from a purpose standpoint. It didn't quite, I guess I wasn't seeing it that way, and it didn't make sense to me. I mean, just went through that whole big thing with those darn accessories, right?
You get up to 6 of them, so.
6 panels?
No, I was saying you get up to 6 accessory structures, except the board hasn't taken that up yet, so we can still revisit
So
that
there's
if you
still
want
only
to.
2, everybody's out of compliance, okay, perfect. Yes, Linda?
Number 3 says, solar energy collectors shall not be mounted on a building wall that is parallel to an adjacent public right of way.
So like the front to the road, front of your house, right?
I understand that when I read it, but here's my point, a certain number of homes on the north side of the street face south. And typically, if you're gonna have a wall mounted, you want it to face south, so it picks up the sun. So I think this is a regulation that is wrong, because you're trying to dictate to somebody, because somebody going down a road who may not like to look at a solar panel, but they can't put it on their wall. I mean, you don't get it, you can't say put it on the north wall, guys.
Right.
You don't get sunshine on the north wall. There's no common sense to that standard. And I would like to address also your accessory use. I've heard you guys say several times tonight, Salem Township does it different. We don't have to call it an accessory use as a suggestion at this point. If we don't like it as an accessory use because, again, we're concerned about what that right number is, then strike it. But I do think number 3 needs to be struck, because there's a certain number of roads in this community in which most people's houses face the road. And so if you're just unfortunate to live on the north side of the street, you just eliminated all those people from potentially having wall-mounted solar, and I don't think that's right. Why should they be discriminated against simply because they live on the north side of the road?
Linda, I absolutely agree with where you're coming from. I would just like to ask, where does this come from? Is this,
But let's remember, it's just, Paul put this out there
Yeah, yeah.
for discussion.
Right, right, right.
So it's not law yet, it's just discussion, and this is why we're discussing it. And you know what?
Let's get through your accessory structure first.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Let's
just
hit it
to
going.
answer the question, this is sample language, and we don't have an ordinance, so this is all brand new. This is a starting point, so whatever you want to do with it, we can do with it.
Right.
So let's do, as Pam suggested, and go through page by page and any, comments and questions. So, yeah, Bart, first, let's finish with page 1 here.
And Paul, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I like you coming in with a lot of options, because we wouldn't think of all the options, and we may whittle it down, and that's a great way to go for us. So,
I will have no hard feelings.
Bring it, it's great, so,
Yep,
You know.
that's
I
that's what
do
he does,
appreciate
so.
that.
And he's also putting things that are already standard practice all around and whatnot, so he gives us some guidance, because we know what happens when we all come up here and give all 7 of our opinions and everybody else's. Mr. Kress.
I just have a question. You talk about accessory structure and accessory use. What's the difference?
That's a good question, too. I'm still thinking, but if you know the answer, go ahead.
Oh, a structure
I
and
mean,
use, a structure is
I'm-
physical, a use
Right,
is.
is the purpose.
Is the purpose, so the principal structure is the home, the principal use is a single-family residence. The accessory structure is any additional structure on that property, garage, shed, barn, solar array, if we define it that way. The use is solar energy collection.
And I,
You don't need to define it as accessory structure, you need to define it as an accessory use.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
and I think that's where I was getting confused, because to me, it's like
Yeah,
a,
it shouldn't be.
you know, there's a,
People getting taxed.
not to say that a shed doesn't have a
We're trying
purpose,
to
it
save
does, we
money.
all, but that's where I thought it was a little bit overkill.
Yep, so we don't need to call that an accessory structure.
I think why people get taxed.
I think
on
we
that,
should
You're trying to
really-
save money to begin with the solar and the wind.
Right.
You know.
Well,
That only is gonna last as long
Yeah.
as it generates.
Okay.
sound,
so is anybody against not having this as or does anybody want to have this as an
I think we should go
accessory
with the verbiage of
structure?
it shall not be considered an accessory structure. And let's make our standing clear on it.
Yeah,
What's
Yeah.
that?
if you don't want it to be considered an accessory structure, by all means, because that makes my job as a zoning administrator easier
Yep,
to have it
you know,
explicit.
this is how it's defined, this is how we look at it, and we go from there.
Shall.
Oh, here,
Like on this point,
the
on
first
the
page.
location of the.
Well, we haven't
solar
gotten to that
panel
page
roof.
yet.
Okay.
We haven't got to that page yet. We don't want to spend too much time on every single stinking page. I mean, every one of these lovely, hard, put together, well thought out things, we just, we need to be efficient and effective. Paul, did you find it?
found it.
Okay. I just didn't, I've heard that before. What's that?
I just typed it.
What page are you on now?
We're still on page 1.
Page 1.
Okay, but we can move to page 2
So
now.
I'm gonna add an accessory, a ground mounted solar array, as an accessory to a residential use shall not be considered an accessory structure. Okay, moving along.
Okay,
Just the second to last sentence, there's something grammatically funky with that. Any accessory solar energy collection system shall be designs and sized to provide for the energy needs of the, shall be designed and sized to provide for all the energy needs.
Where is that, I'm sorry?
Second to last sentence of the last section of 60.32.
oh,
Designed.
Yeah, it was, if you're anything like me, I write it one way, then I change it, I don't change it all, so it ends up grammatically wonky.
Yeah, and the intent there was that somebody wouldn't put a 6 or 10 panel array out there when they only need 4 to provide for the energy needs for their home.
Well, the only thing, Paul, it depends on the use of that. Some people are getting credits from the utility companies,
Yeah.
but then other people have battery banks, and depending on how large their battery bank system is, will determine how many solar panels they want.
If that battery bank is intended for the use of that single-family residence, then great. The intent is that this is not supposed to be an energy production facility. It is a single-family residence as the principal use. The solar is accessory.
Okay, why would that be a problem? Because as far as I understand, the DTEs of this world love that. Trust me, they're making money there. They give you a little, but they make more.
Okay, well, if
They
you're,
absolutely love that, they incentivize that.
if you're not gonna consider this an accessory structure, then somebody can fill up their yard potentially then with a solar array, and then you've crossed the line between the principal use
No, I get you.
of the site being a residence to being an energy production facility that also has a home.
Should this contribute to square footage of coverage of a property, just like accessory structure? Maybe we should
If it
put something in
provides-
there, other than, but the square footage and percentage coverage should be considered. So
We
that.
can make that explicit. I think that any administrator would consider that to constitute ground coverage. but we can make that explicit as well.
Yeah, that may be worthwhile.
So we can't have somebody and get our batteries charged and then the overflow can't go back
Yeah.
to the to the electric company, right?
The overflow can, and it says that in the ordinance, that
The overflow can go back, but it's supposed to be designed and sized for
Mm-hmm.
the residents and not as an energy production facility. That's a commercial
I'll
facility, and
send you
that's,
my electric bill from my girls running hair dryers, and I'll prove it all.
well, I mean, when you hire a company to come put this in, they're gonna do an audit of your energy needs, and they're gonna put something that's sized, and they'll demonstrate that when they submit the application.
All right, page 2. We need to move faster. Okay. I agree with Linda on the number 3. I think that's a good point, that's not necessary. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had a question. Is the reason that's put in, does it have anything to do with safety, glare coming from it if it's parallel to a roadway?
I think
That's the
there,
only reason I could think
There's
of
a
that
requirement in there that says, no
there
matter
is,
what you do, there can't be glare.
there can't be glare.
I think this is more of an aesthetic issue. I think some people get really offended when they see that because it doesn't look like siding on a house.
Whatever, okay.
It's
As
coming.
long as it wasn't a.
I'm sorry.
Next month.
Solar arrays that look like siding.
Yeah.
They're a combination.
Yeah.
It's coming.
They have shingles that look.
Yeah, it is one and the same.
Yeah.
So,
Stay tuned.
yeah.
Um,
So we're taking out number 3.
yeah.
Anything else on page 2?
Page 3.
Some of them are taller than 15 feet.
No, page 3. Page 4.
Yes,
Oh, yes, Ms. Bonnie?
we're not, putting this out according to Monroe County Road Commission, number 7.
Yeah, that's page 4. Number 7.
I would like to know, I would really like to know who put this together and didn't go read the typos. He or she ought to have a.
Well, it's just a draft, so we can work out the
15
bugs and
Yeah,
thank you
but
for
it's not
that.
up to us to work out the bugs, it should have come bug free.
Well,
Some of those are 20, 25 feet
thank you.
sometimes.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Are there any existing ground-mounted solar panels that you know of in the township that don't meet these standards?
Ground mounted aren't allowed in the township.
There are existing,
They're, I mean, they're here.
Yeah, Pontiac Trail.
They're not allowed, so.
that is the stance that I understand the township has taken, is that they are not permitted, so I have not done any review of them. I do know that they exist.
Seen many.
Yes. A lot of people do things without getting permits, so,
Well, you already have some existing here.
Right.
so
That's what I was telling you.
whether this makes those non-conforming or not, I don't know.
I have some things underlined and just to, let's just move on. I had the Monroe County Road Commission too, we'll change that.
Thank you for that catch.
Number 5, I did have a question on number 8 up the top, where it says, are we in commercial ones now?
Yep.
Okay. Plan security measures to prevent unauthorized trespass and access during the construction, operation, removal, maintenance, and repair of the commercial solar energy system. So, when you're prepping it, when it's there, when you're removing it, does that mean they have to have a fence there?
I
Is that what
believe-
that is?
Yes. There's a requirement to have a fence surrounding the commercial arrays.
And then, number 10, planned lighting protection measures. Is that the lights that,
Lightning.
oh, lightning.
Lightning.
that's
Lightning,
right.
yeah.
Brown rounds,
Okay,
lightning.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, when are they gonna put a bunch of lights up there around the solar thing? All right, I shouldn't have said that.
You're using up all the energy you just created.
Hey, Paul, where did we come up with?
Good one,
the,
Bonnie.
Okay.
Paul, where did we come up with the 15 feet? Where did that, on the ground mounted units?
Is that part of the commercial standard?
No, I thought it was residential.
We're back to
Top
residential.
of page 3.
Because I know I measured a few of them, some of them are 20, 25 feet. I just wondered where we had come up with the 15 feet.
Again, I pulled this from sample ordinances,
Okay.
What's the highest we allow in accessory building?
25. 25 to the midpoint of the gable.
Okay.
And I'm assuming on page 5, that the substation, electrical transmission code shall not exceed 100 feet. That's, I just assume when you put these numbers in, those are something standard that you pull from somewhere else, right?
Yes. I am by no means a solar energy expert.
15 feet from that.
I know, but here we are making all these important decisions.
Well, and Pam, you all should know that we did vet this through Sarah Mills, the,
I actually had that, wondering if she was gonna see it.
yeah, and after our conversation tonight, I would like to send this back by her with any edits that we make. But she had looked at this even before her presentation that she gave 2 months ago, and thought that this looked acceptable, and, you know, she's seen dozens of these across the state.
Okay, page 6, anybody have any,
Could we consider?
oh, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, just for the,
what page are you on?
I'm
Still
back to
back?
page 3, back on the 15 feet. Maybe we could do something that, instead of restricting it, and I understand what you guys are trying to do is probably not make the solar panels stick out like a sore thumb on this person's property. So maybe make that in relation to other buildings. If he's got a house that's 25 feet tall, say, okay, it can be a percentage height of the tallest building on the property. If he's got a barn that's this, then just, so maybe if we're looking aesthetically at the solar panel, it's not the main thing that's sticking out on that property. Or make it the same as one of the outbuildings. But I think if a person had a single story ranch, a 15-foot high solar panel would possibly stick out.
But it's a maximum of 15, right? So
Yes.
I would imagine that there's
Right.
some sort of standard to get the
So-
maximum amount
so-
of whatever.
What
That's
I'm
a
trying to do
recommendation,
here
right?
is draw out what do we want to be concerned with? How it looks relative to other buildings on the property, to consider. Do we want it to look how it looks relative to other buildings on the property, or as an absolute standalone? Because if I saw a 30-foot high barn, a 28-foot high house, a 25-foot shed, and a 15-foot high solar panel, I'd be like, big, you know, sure, no big deal. If the panel was 25 or whatever high, I'd probably still say no, it's no big deal. It doesn't
So you have
stick
to,
out
it
among
has to
all
be
the.
screened, when you get further in the page, it's going to screen, so
Yeah,
then you're
I'm-
screening
I'm-
more.
Maybe it should be a
Yeah,
condition.
just, yeah, I know, it's coming.
Oh, okay, Dan,
But,
It should be 15 feet to grade, shouldn't it? As Bob mentioned, what if you got a big hill and you put it on top of the hill?
I believe that it says something in that regard.
from the ground at the base of such equipment. Yeah,
The
so,
base.
so if the base is the lowest point, like the lowest spike that you put in the ground, I would say, yeah, it's 15 feet up from that. But I guess what I'm saying is, are we concerned with a relative look or an absolute look?
Well, I gotta tell you, from an administration standpoint, I don't wanna have to do relative calculations for every array that comes in based
Understand,
on
and that's-
every structure that's on the
Sure.
property. That would be a nightmare. So I would rather set a maximum standard that we find to be acceptable. And not just for me, for anybody who's doing that, for anybody who's evaluating that.
Mr. Cross, did you have a,
Is there a technological reason for the height of the array?
I can find out.
That would be interesting to know.
well, that's why I was thinking that there was probably some sort of standard of what they were put in, and there's some sort of reasoning or justification in the person that
We want to
installed
maximize the
these,
solar.
but, right, you wanna maximize the sun, so,
Well,
I don't know where that would be.
my thought is if this is gonna be an active array that moves in tracks, then, you know, in the morning light, here's your 15-foot high array when it's at 45, when it's parked or something like that. Here's your array in the morning. here as it tracks, you know, I mean.
Some of them
we-
do,
we-
yeah.
And if that panel happens to be, at our, where we are in Michigan, almost to the 45th, we need it at this angle, and then you find out that panel, when you put it on your ground and keep it up out of snow, it sits 16 feet high. I'd rather base it on what the technology is out there than just a number, I guess.
Maybe you can look into that.
I will look into that.
You will be a solar panel expert.
I will.
Okay. Page 6.
Bruce has something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce.
Just a couple things, and it's okay, Lori.
It's a
Oh,
small.
on page 4 or 7, the road access and so, I'm just thinking from it's down in the weeds, but when DT puts one in, you know they're gonna put in a big driveway and turnarounds and safety and all that stuff in there. But if this goes super commercialized and somebody's doing it on the cheap, do we have enough standards in there to cover that? Make sure that they're gonna have a large enough driveway for fire trucks, for whatever needs to get in there and get in there and do what they gotta do. But the important one was more on, and I put it under number 9 on page 5, but we don't know what in this technology, what potential, so I wrote on here that part of the decommissioning or whatever, but security bond for unknown ground contamination that might come from this equipment or the transformers or anything that might be involved with solar technology. I know maybe the technology of the solar panel isn't, but they start putting batteries or transformers or any other equipment on the property, do we have to worry about ground contamination and things like that? Just any sentence in there or bonding or anything like that, just, again, it's kind of the.
So we do have a standard for decommissioning, but I don't know that we get into the detail of unforeseen contaminations.
That's a good point.
So, hold on, let me finish my note on page 4, number 7.
I'm sure these batteries have a spill tray or something underneath them.
I'm
I don't
not
know,
sure there's
yeah.
any batteries involved, just.
Yeah, I don't know enough.
Yeah, I think that-
I'm looking for the sentence,
No,
the
I'm
one sentence that protects, that has bond, protects the township from paying for the cleanup,
Correct,
No, that's,
or the
that's,
landowner.
yeah.
that's great.
Okay, was there a particular section that you were citing here?
Anywhere you can,
Thank you.
put it,
You know,
just protect the township from, idealistically, from having to get involved with cleanup or pay for cleanup.
So we've got a decommissioning plan and escrow section, P.
Yeah, that would probably be the best place to stick it.
And part of the problem would be not necessarily just limited to the decommissioning, but it could also occur
During
during
operations.
the operation. And if you had some unfortunate event happen where the solar array got nailed by flying debris, it started scattering silicon and rare earth metals across the field. You wanna get that cleared out.
Yeah, I'm not that smart, so, but I'm aware that something could happen. And we don't wanna find out, 20 years from now that we did something 20 years ago that's now causing strange growths on our toes.
This is what we do.
It's been going on for decades.
Swallow the spider to catch the fly, and we just keep going.
Okay, what page are we on? I think we got to 6. Because I have a lot of underlines and things.
That's a question for
We don't have anything. Okay. So I guess, and pardon me, I don't know a whole lot about this, but when we get to the commercial section, which I think, from what I've heard, and we've discussed this before, is probably one of the main concerns of people in the township, or at least the people that come here, and what I've heard. You get to commercial stuff, and all of a sudden I see they're exempt. I'm like, can you explain that to me?
Well, so this first exemption in the screening is exempting them from section 60.09, which is the standard screening requirement between dissimilar uses. So if you have a commercial use next to
A commercial use.
if you have a commercial use next to a
Okay.
residential use, then you have a standard screening requirement that's identified in section 60.09. What this section then goes on to do is create its own unique screening requirements for this use.
Okay, I knew there was something there, but I didn't quite understand it. I thought it was interesting, I'm just gonna point it out, is that on number 4, failure to install or continuously maintain the required vegetative buffer shall constitute a violation of, wait, is that the one or something? No, I take that. There's something else in here that makes it like, if you don't take care of it or do something, we're gonna pull your permit.
That's
Yeah, annual inspections, there's annual inspection.
That's really gonna
Correct,
happen?
Paul?
The use may be subject to revocation, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that, honestly, there's, the conditional use permit section already states that, so this is
Okay.
redundant, but
Okay.
it's to reinforce.
Well, if the permit's revoked, then what happens?
Either they decommission it based on the decommissioning plan, or we use the escrow that we have in place to do that.
Okay, so is everybody good with page 6, moving on to page 7? Just want to point out the glare and lighting, that's where, you know, the glare was addressed.
Well, so that's specific to the commercial
Right.
section, not necessarily the residential section. So if you wanna put something like that in the residential section to protect,
I thought I read that was in,
maybe it's in there too, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I thought it was in both, but now I don't know. There shouldn't be glare imposed upon anybody.
Non-reflective of light, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's
okay.
right after number 3 that we scratched out.
Okay.
Sorry. Back to page
7,
Seven.
8, 9. Did anyone, somebody else have any comments, concerns? With that, you want to discuss, Ms. Linda?
Yeah, on page 8. Under E.
I'm sorry, what number?
It's where you.
Okay.
have Same day notice to go in. It's under our inspection. The township shall have the right to provide same day notice to the applicant. That's not fair. You can commercial.
There's a little,
Where does it say same days?
Under R, under.
Yeah.
Under R,
Yeah.
commercial,
Okay.
energy systems.
commercial, for commercial?
Yeah, same day notice.
Yeah, I thought it was a little harsh, but.
I mean, same day, so you're saying someone can call up at 9 o'clock in the morning, say, we're coming in at 10 o'clock, that's not right. That's not how you do business.
No, agreed.
Okay. What do you guys think? Are you good with that?
Yeah, no,
Want a time frame?
I agree with her, yeah, we should,
Week?
you know, at least 3 days. I mean,
Yeah.
What's standard?
Should be a notification, not an hour. It should
I think
be
we
longer
should
than
put-
that.
I'm sorry, what was that, Darryl?
It should be longer than an hour, you know, a day or two notice,
Yeah.
we'll be out for inspection.
So like what, a
I'm gonna
week?
be out there in an hour, you know.
A week, somebody? Is that standard? Bruce?
At least 3 days would be good. I mean, again, it's a non, you know, it's not occupied, it's not a business open where there's somebody there all the time.
Right.
So, you know, 3 days to 5 business days.
Yeah.
3 to 5 business days?
Doesn't it depend on the situation that you're reacting to? Because if it's actively shorting and sparking and demonstrating unstable behavior, you want to get in pretty fast.
Behavior.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between an emergency response
Yeah,
and an
that's part of
inspection. I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
you're just going on because, yeah.
I would suspect that emergency response ordinances already deal with something like that, so.
So then we're just talking like annual inspection?
Yeah.
and I don't see where, I mean, give people some time.
You could-
5
you could
business
have a
days.
You could have a complaint because the weeds are too high under the solar arrays. And so the township's going in to inspect that because you expect your vegetation to be of no more than a certain height. And that's the type of inspection this could be.
So what do you guys think, 3 days?
At least 3 days.
I mean, it's a business, they should,
Someone there.
yeah.
Remember, we got a part-time guy too. He's Yeah.
Sometimes it takes that part-time guy a week and a half.
Exactly,
so-
if he only works 2 days a week and you call him right after the day he just put in his 2 days, then you.
So, this language also says at any reasonable time, maybe we just say during business hours. Because who's to say what that reasonable time is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Business hours, business days, 3 to 5.
Should I do right?
Do you have anything else?
Do we have the right to inspect anybody else's business when, like, any of these trucking businesses or tree cutting businesses, or do we have the right to go on their property to inspect? And I guess why is this different than any other business, I guess is what I'm looking for. Because it being,
Just the grass is the only, it's supposed to be kept neat, like Linda said.
Because this is a newer standard, I think that the language that goes along with it is based on issues that have arisen. I think that if we're going back through and auditing every single section of the ordinance, we might do a similar standard. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I do believe we have a standard in the ordinance that says if somebody applies for a commercial permit for commercial land use on a piece of land, it gives us the right to go and inspect that property. I don't have that citation off the top of my head. but-
okay, so this is not anything, a commercial solar guy would not be looking at a concrete crusher and going, wow, you don't have that on you?
Right. And by all means, if there was some kind of violation that was suspected, that would give us. the-
Yeah, that's.
So I think-
We're
It'll always
investigating, we're
make
not
this thing we
inspecting
have.
anymore, we're investigating.
So I think the criteria with things like this, especially because it's a newer use, it's a newer technology, there's a lot more kind of concern and fear, if you will, that goes along with them. And so things like this are written into the standard language to put community policymakers at ease.
Is there some more thing that talks about the annual inspection?
Yes, there is.
So why don't we put annual?
There's a
There's an
thing.
annual inspection,
There
but,
is.
right?
Mhm.
There was some verbiage in here for
Yeah,
that.
there was.
Just that.
There is verbiage here somewhere. There's an annual inspection.
Was it, Paul?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because maybe that would kind of soften that a little bit if under inspection, you know, an annual inspection will be scheduled and made, da-da-da. Outside of this, if there's specific concerns, we have the right to, within a 72-hour period to, maybe that would soften that a little bit, and put it all under one.
The other thing, Paul, too, I had a question was, to have a commercial solar system, you have to have 10 acres or more of property?
That's what the standard says in this
Really?
language, yeah.
The
To be, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The text says an aggregate of 10 acres. Does that mean they have to be contiguous, or can you have 10 acres scattered all over the township?
That is a good question. I took that to mean contiguous, but
There's commercial sizes.
I frankly don't think that any, as I understand it, I don't think that any of the commercial solar power energy companies would do anything less than that. I don't think it would be worth it to them. based on my understanding of the industry, which is limited.
Yeah, but when we say commercial, it can be a privately owned business that
Yes.
wants to put in a solar farm.
Right.
So we're saying you cannot do that if you have less than 10 acres?
And it's my understanding that if you have less than that, it would not, it wouldn't pencil out to do it anyhow. So I don't
Why
think.
would depend how big your commercial building is.
Oh, no. So, I'm sorry. Commercial buildings
Well,
can
commercial-
do a accessory array, just like you can as a residence,
Okay.
as part of the first part of this ordinance. This is a commercial production facility. This is
Gotcha.
somebody.
Energy producing
Yes.
production facility.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay. Understand, well, thank you.
With less than 10 acres using current technology, I don't think, no pun intended, I don't think you'd get enough production to make it cost effective.
That's what Sarah said when she was here. So back to the inspection thing, now that we're tearing it apart completely. It's kind of, when I read this, it says, have the right to, at any reasonable time to provide same-day notice, okay, we tackled that. Then it says, the township may hire one or more consultants to assist with inspection at the applicant's or project owner's expense. It almost kind of sounds like we really, the township doesn't have a purpose for this inspection. Is there supposed to be, is this,
Yeah.
and I mean, if we're gonna charge somebody,
So
I guess I'm kind of looking, okay, for an inspection, I would think, I mean, a solar thing, okay, there must be some sort of purpose, if it's an emergency thing, or it's just an annual inspection. I would think it's generally one or the other, correct?
That's a good point. I would suggest that the township is not gonna do that just to mess with somebody, if you will. They're not, because if they are doing this for no particular purpose, and it's determined that, I would think that it's, a business owner would then have the ability or the motivation to bring a suit if there's no particular reason that a township is doing that. And so I think that that's the.
I guess I'm just wondering what's the purpose of the inspection? If there's an emergency, it's gonna trigger this response.
Yeah, so.
If it's an annual inspection, it should be this, and I mean, then what, the guys, I guess, what is the purpose for a surprise visit? I'm not quite understanding
Okay.
the intent of this section R.
She does.
Oh. You're off my Christmas card list.
I will look into
That.
that and to determine if it's something that we want to do on an annual basis or if it's based on some suspected concern.
Sure.
Bonnie says the kick is good.
Yes, ma'am.
We do in this township do surprise visits, and we do them maliciously. You can ask Mr. Whitaker, he was surprised on a day, he had a full house out there, and they interrupted his business and tried to stop it. It had stop orders and everything else going on, they just wouldn't serve the stop orders. But you can ask him.
When was this?
Yeah, before you.
About before Gary got into office, that's the
Oh,
reason he came into
yeah,
office.
yeah.
But you can also
Right.
know that people will use it.
Sure, I've heard that, but we're trying to clean this stuff up, so.
That's
Maybe
right.
we make a
That's
distinction
right.
between,
All right, let's
Put it
move
out
on.
there so they can't use it maliciously.
Paul,
Clearing that
maybe
up.
make a
Yeah.
distinction between a planned inspection and an emergency or special case investigation.
Yep.
Because certainly, yeah, like he said, if you see sparks coming up, yeah, hey, we're going in there, and guess what? We're bringing this guy to make sure it's safe and shut down, and you were the one that was spewing sparks, so you should pay for it. We saved you, I think there could be some difference made between those.
Yeah,
If
so-
we want to go down that. to
Well,
that
and I'll look into this. If there's a reason that we need to
Okay.
do annual inspections, then, by all means, it should be the operator who pays for that as opposed to the township residents. And if there's a governmental purpose to doing those annual inspections, then by all means, we'll make that explicit. If the intent here is that there may be some issue and we want to have the right to inspect it, then we'll make the reason for the inspections explicit as well.
I think that's what you need to do, you need to define the term inspection.
Linda.
Yep.
township has a cost recovery ordinance if you have an emergency and somebody's out of line.
Like
and
the
you
fire
gotta go in
department.
And do something, so we're already covered for that
Yeah.
cost, to Bart's comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, draft wind energy conversion system, it's the same process, it's a draft. What you like, what you don't like.
Okay, so let me again remind you all that this is an existing ordinance. This is something that you all saw a year ago.
Red line,
Yep, only the red lines are newly proposed, and basically this is to come in line with the definition that there is a agricultural wind energy collection systems, there are private wind energy collection systems, and commercial wind energy collection systems. This ordinance did not address the private collection systems, though it was identified as part of the ordinance. So that's, by and large, what we've added here is just that ability for an individual, just like we're talking about individuals to have a solar system, this would be your ability as an individual resident to put up a reasonable wind turbine.
and if I remember correctly, Sarah discussed with the wind, because I think one of the concerns that people brought up again was the commercial aspect of it. You know, there was something about with the wind flow and measuring, in the open space. Not that she knows exactly, but so when she looked at all this stuff, we were not a very viable source for wind
Well,
energy.
and especially not at the height of the towers that you have allowed in your ordinance now. So, this has been in your ordinance, we haven't gotten any traction on it, nobody's beating down the doors to put up or wind farms here.
I haven't heard anything positive yet, but that's just anecdotal.
Well, so what I was gonna say is, if you remember the slide that she showed, that said the viability of wind can happen basically anywhere, depending on how tall your turbines are. And so, I would suspect that since nobody has elected to move forward with that here, we don't allow for tall enough turbines. So if it's something that you really wanted to encourage, if that was something that the township was clamoring to have more of, that would be a direction that you could go. I'm not hearing that from you all. We didn't propose
Well, I think we'll hear
any,
in the public hearing, I think we'll maybe get another perspective.
we may have.
Maybe, maybe not, but I mean, at least,
So with this chart, you can only have one wind turbine if you have 40 acres?
Yes.
Okay, that seems pretty restrictive. 40 acres, one wind turbine. Sounds pretty restrictive to me. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
So these are for,
know enough to know the output to know whether, I mean, it's almost like, I mean, there's no, I feel like we don't have the data.
well, this is for agricultural and private wind energy collection systems. So this again would be like having a single solar array for your home,
Okay,
as opposed to, like a commercial field where you'd have.
it's for your own personal use.
Right.
Okay.
And again, I'm not an expert on the technology here. I don't know how many turbines you would need to power a 2,600 square foot house.
Depends on how many hair dryers are in Bart's house, he might need more.
Let me tell you.
So that's not set in stone then? This isn't set in stone?
This is a draft. But it's a draft of an existing ordinance.
If it's black and white here in this ordinance, it exists in your ordinance.
Right.
The only things that are proposed changes are the underlying pieces.
Is there any limitation on low frequency noise generation?
Noise levels measured at the property line of the property on which the agricultural wind energy collection system project has been installed shall not exceed 55 decibels. Is that,
That is probably not good enough. That's the biggest problem we have with wind farms, is the low energy, the low frequency energy that goes through the ground
Right.
and then resonates in your house.
so let me see if there's something there on the,
That's, well, that's the difference between DBA and DBB. And I think I mentioned something like that last time this came out.
additional standards for commercial projects. I don't see anything, so we can look for some language if that's something the planning commission would like me to do.
How do you? How do you know that it's gonna be below that, at that distance?
Well, decibels is just an amplitude measurement. You want to know what the frequency is, because that is what.
Energy.
Yeah,
So tell me the term again you used, low frequency.
low frequency noise generation.
Linda, did you have a comment?
Yeah, on page 2,
Uh-huh.
says, we now set on all private systems not located in the AR district. And we're talking about agriculture, and we've had this discussion numerous times in this room. That in Salem Township, all agriculture does not take place on land that's zoned AR. But this township has zoned agricultural land ER because they want large acre parcels. And so what this potentially does, if not modified, it takes a significant amount of farmland, and you just said to that farmer, you can't have a wind turbine on that land.
I'm sorry, Linda, what number are you on?
I'm on page 2B, where it says, other WECS
Okay.
approval, and it's been added, not located in the AR district. Now, I have no problem if you wanna take every acre of land that's farmed in this township and zone it AR. But you haven't. And there's significant amount of farmland that is zoned something other than AR.
This is talking about private, not agricultural wind energy collection, but private wind energy collection that's not located in AR. If it's above 75 feet is what that's talking about. It's not trying to limit feet.
All agricultural WECS exceeding 75 feet in height,
Yep.
comma. It doesn't say and, it says comma. All private WECS not located in the AR district and all commercial. So I'm gonna beg to differ. The way it's written, that's not what it says, what you're saying, Paul.
This is I believe this is saying that all private wind energy systems not located. So private energy systems wind energy systems are different by definition than agricultural wind energy systems.
I think this may be a good place to put in a chart. If zone this, max height is this, max per acre is this, decibels from property line is this, and just, otherwise, we're gonna deal with the commas and the ands and everything maybe, Paul.
Fair enough.
Yeah, just chart it.
With the sea containers.
Looking for a chart.
Linda, the intent was to modify private wind energy systems, not agricultural wind energy systems. But I will look at that language and try to clean it up, and maybe Bart is right that a chart is the way to go here.
Well, that's all the problem? Okay.
Potentially it doesn't, I mean, you
Till
can't
the next
say
one
it does
comes
till you
along,
see
right?
the final language, right?
All right.
What are some of the major concerns that we should be thinking of, keeping in mind, protecting for when it comes in general to these wind energies?
Noise pollution. Noise pollution.
Yeah, I mean, if we think back to the presentation that was given by,
Yeah, and that is addressed, so that's good.
yes, so noise, flicker,
Flickering.
killing of animals, birds per se, stuff like that.
Eagles.
Flight patterns, we talked about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think that it's been realized that it's not, you know, it's not something that just attracts birds into the, it's not like sucking birds into the flow, but it can be an issue if it is located within a migratory pattern. And that's something that's already addressed in your ordinance.
Yeah. I read that.
On page 3, C, permitted locations. 2 acres, and the AR, and the PSP. So that's, if I remember correctly, the PSP is like libraries, schools, is that what we would want one of these? Is there a lot of wind around government buildings?
Yes.
Tonight there is.
With bags. And we're all part of it. All right.
You know, I don't know what the intent, and to be honest, I don't know that I love the PSP
That's all right,
district.
it's just a place to start.
Yeah.
Monroe County's a good place.
Is it now?
They closed.
All right, save this
I was told the
conversation.
boys.
Right.
Creating issues.
I will look at that permitted location section.
Okay. And then once again, we got into all the exempt things, but I guess that, and I still had concerns, but not exactly knowing why with some of the noise levels, but I guess that'll be a little more detailed discussion when he becomes an expert at our next discussion on this.
Sorry, just to Linda's point again, is that we have, it's not, she said significant, but we have ER,
Oh, the
state
ER.
residential, which is also farmland, which is also,
Yeah.
it just, are we gonna purposefully exclude or include ER?
Well, so that C permitted locations is the section that does that. It's not the previous section that we're looking at, so. And I mistakenly put that modifier in there because C wouldn't even, that would contradict, C would contradict what I said in that section. So is that something we would look to do, would be to allow
ER,
ER?
back to the chart as well.
ER in addition to PSP and AR.
My question is why PSP? I mean, if we have noise, maybe it's something, I mean, maybe we don't have the answer right now, but if we're looking into this low frequency noise generation and whatnot, I mean, is that something you want next to the school and the library?
I think the noise is a big deal.
I don't think those kids need to be any more distracted.
Just staring out the window at the shadow.
Watching the windmill go down.
I don't know that there are any kids in school right now with all this COVID nonsense going on. But, the other thing that was mentioned at the discussion we had 2 months ago was ice accumulation and then large chunks of ice being flung off
Oh, I
the
forgot
site.
about that.
Right. How much noise you need that, just something 75 feet up in the air?
We definitely don't want that around the school.
Can't be,
No.
what, over 55 decibels?
They're very limited. They're very limited.
Okay, any other comments or items you want me to look into on this?
To the flicker,
Yes.
on page, I don't know, 4 or 5, it says, okay. Number 3 on page 5, to minimize off-site impacts from shadow flicker. along with the noise, I don't know. There shouldn't be flicker on anybody else, right? You know, keep your flicker to yourself, kind of thing, right?
So I think based on,
What's your language?
Page 5.
based on something I read here, it talks about different times of the day and different seasons of the year based on where the sun is casting shadows, so I mean, these,
And once again, if I have to look out my window or whatever, I mean, I think people should just kind of keep to themselves. So I don't know, maybe, I don't feel that Dan should have to deal with any of my flicker. Or anybody else, you know what I mean? I mean, I just don't understand how somebody say, well, I wanna put up a windmill. And you know, well, you have to deal with this because I wanna put up with the windmill. I don't think that should ever happen unless I'm crazy.
Is there a way that this is grandfathered? Because we're talking about putting a windmill up in, you know, a state residential. That's right now farmland. Someone puts up a windmill. It casts a shadow onto cut corn. And there's not a groundhog out there that gives a whip. And then someone comes in and builds their estate residential home on there, and the windmill still exists. We gotta make it so that the windmill is grandfathered and they're okay, and those other people can pound sand, because they built into that situation. Just like people downwind from the dump, just like people that bought a house across from a concrete crushing factory.
I mean, I think
We
that
gotta
the-
protect that guy who can't get sued after the fact.
the section in this ordinance that talks about legal nonconformities would apply to anything that at the time it was legal, and if it does not conform now, it would still be legal. Yeah.
Excellent.
In number 5, 3 or more documented complaints of shadow flicker passing over any off-site road right away, occupied dwelling, principal building, blah, 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 goes on, within 365 days shall be grounds for the township to require that the private or commercial wind energy collection system unit be shut down and secured against movement during the hours and seasons of the year when such off-site impacts have occurred.
No,
So almost,
no. You get shadow flicker through trees when you're driving down this road in the fall.
You do, yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a good point.
whack.
That's a good point.
Thou shalt not have any trees alongside the road.
Is that something you want to remove? Is that what you're
I
saying?
don't know.
I mean, that does sound a little subjective.
At least when we start burning books in this township. it's-
Well, again, it comes to what Barbara's
It's
saying.
true, trees.
You know, it was there,
Yeah.
Right.
and if somebody,
Well, I guess what I think what this is intended to protect, my speculation, what this was intended to protect is that they go through number 4, they do this shadow cast study, the township approves it, they put it up. Next fall, this thing's been up for 6 months, and all of a sudden the shadows are longer, and I live next door, and now I've lived here for 20 years, and this thing's new, and it's flickering in my window and driving me crazy.
Old lines.
Isn't that part of the study, the casting
Oh,
study?
Well, that's what I'm saying,
surprised
maybe-
to hear
Yeah.
this conversation
Yeah, that's
going this way.
You're surprised?
I am, you know, all of a sudden somebody can put up a windmill and you're saying, oh, if I've lived here for 20 years, pull the blinds? Really? If that was your window, I don't think you would be saying that, because I would think you would be saying, I've lived here for 20 years and blah, 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 and now they put this up, I shouldn't have to deal with that.
It's just
That
like the
windmill
guy who had the
75
guy with
foot
the
up in
light
the air, you're
pollution
gonna get
over on
shadow
Brookfield.
flicker?
It wasn't so.
Where?
He was in here talking.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I just think that
That
whatever you
windmill
put
that
should
high
not,
up in the air, you're gonna get shadow flickering?
I don't know.
Well, isn't that what the study does?
I think this is kind of so vague and, kind of out there and, but I think if we're gonna have it, we should at least do it right. I don't think,
I don't think,
I don't think anybody's flicker should
I don't think anybody's really
hit somebody else.
know a whole lot about this technology and what, I think we almost need to educate ourselves a little bit better.
They'll come galvanized.
Yeah, that's why I said, I don't know what to think about this because we don't have enough data, we don't have enough information.
And it's not eminent.
I was gonna say, you're
So,
gonna have reflection
yeah.
from that and glare.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna reach out to Sarah, who's the expert, and see
Okay.
if she would evaluate these things when we move further along. and I will ask about number 5 and how that relates to number 4. And if
Okay.
this is a reasonable thing to have in here, again, this may have been something that was written in this ordinance because we were sitting in a discussion just like this, and some people said, well, what if?
Here's
What
my
if, what if
opinion.
it, what if in the future, I've been here for 20 years and this thing goes up and they did this study, but it's, you know, they didn't account for,
The
you
other
know,
season.
October 20th, when the shadows are really long.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, we'll go ahead and put this in here.
So I think we've kind of come back to where we don't, I mean, it was a good discussion, and everything, but I think before we do anything further, we should have more information.
Yep, okay, so I've got some direction on a few things that I need to check on. Is there anything else that somebody has concerns about or questions about?
The very last sentence on page 7, maybe I just didn't understand it. Section D, financial provisions shall not be so onerous as to make wind power projects unfeasible. Can you explain section D to me, clarify that a little bit?
I cannot, I have the same question here.
You're gonna ask Sarah?
I mean,
It almost kind of sounded,
It almost sounds like, don't make it so expensive where they can't afford it.
it says the township has these rights to seek injunctive relief to effect or completely decommission. But then it throws something in here, financial provisions shall not be so onerous as to make wind projects unfeasible. Are you talking about the government, are you talking, you know, the township, or are we talking about whoever put it up there? I don't understand that sentence in there,
So,
so maybe you can look at that
yeah,
another
I
day.
think, I think what it's saying is the township has the right to, keep a deposit, a lien against the property basically, just like we talked about in the solar ones. So that if somebody walks away from it, the township has the money to decommission this thing.
Right,
And this language, I don't know if this comes from, you know, legal precedents or what, but, I would think the township should have the right to have enough money to decommission the thing.
I agree.
But is it the wind lobbyist who said, well, you can't make it so expensive that we can't afford to build the project?
I just don't see how that sentence ties into with the rest of it. Sounds like somebody picked something out of somewhere else and said, let's just throw this in there, just in case. Yes,
I'll look into that one as well.
okay.
One small consideration, and again, I'm not knowledgeable either, but someone could actually lease land, put up a solar farm or whatever, cell tower, whatever they.
Commercial?
Whatever, but my point is, because they may say the technology is good for 20 years. So if you're putting a lien against the property, well, the guy doesn't own the property, they're just leasing the property. So just gotta make sure that if we're trying to protect the township, that we include that potential land being leased for a given period for the purpose of solar or wind.
But Bruce, you have a classification of taxes as you're building on this land. That's what your cell tower is. So a lien could go on that.
I don't know,
You have a tax on it.
I'm just saying that we want to do our
But
homework.
if
You've done it already.
Classification, I'll show you that.
It's all done already. We're covered.
I'm just giving you some information.
Thank you.
Hey,
Is that
Paul,
crazy that-
can you like require these commercial operations to have a bond that the township would hang on to for decommissioning purposes?
That's
If
exactly
it came to
what that
that?
section's talking about, yeah. But based on that language, not so much that it would make the project unfeasible.
Do we see inspections and investigations the same way for wind as we do for solar? No, I mean, I tell you what, you know, a solar panel's just gonna go and just be a little spark show. Windmills go bad, they're really cool. It's fun to watch them go on.
There's an annual inspection requirement.
Right. But I mean, if all of a sudden the neighbor's noticing that it's 58 decibels and shaking the ground,
Like
we
my
may
living
wanna.
room
And with a
You
wind
know,
turbine,
lights
you have
flies
a
up.
large foundation that's poured and lag bolts, and I mean, yeah, there's things on a wind tower that have to be periodically checked.
Go on to YouTube.
I would
They
be
require a
regular.
lot of
Turbine
maintenance.
failure,
Oh,
they're neat.
oh goodness.
They come apart, It's like shrapnel, it's like a yard sale.
Okay, report of commissioners and correspondence, board of trustee. What's new and exciting? No, nothing? Okay. Is this a renewal of, for show staff, is that what you guys did? Yeah. Okay, so it's a renewal of the, yeah, okay. Okay. ZBA,
Nothing new.
nothing. Land preservation, conservation?
Again, we're still asking that we try and eventually get an audience to talk about, for new developments that we look at possibly including, putting in percentage for park or for preserving land, things like that. It's a high level thought process right now, but
Okay.
as it relates particularly to the USD, that there's ample, there's density of building that it has ample park and recreation spaces for those residents coming in.
And if, I can't remember the gentleman's name that we spoke with. Steve Schaefer. If it comes time when we need one, you wanna speak to the planning commission, we can invite him, just let us know. See if we can schedule him on the agenda. Somebody trying to get my attention? Planning consultant review.
There are no major projects coming our way that I'm aware of. I did have a report that was in my computer that talked about the, number of permits that we have issued. It seems like it was a little bit up, but it was mostly re-roofs. Just re-shingling. Do you remember any highlights from that one, Ann?
That's all right, if we don't have one this month, that's fine,
Typical month, yeah.
Did a report this month, so it was a lot from last year. We had like 4 from last year. This year we have 38.
Oh, wow.
Like, I mean, it's a lot, it's a lot. 76, I'm sorry.
It was a big number for the
Oh,
last 2
okay,
months.
well, that's interesting, well, okay. Approval of the minutes for September 20th.
Motion to accept the Salem Township Planning Commission minutes of September 20th, 2021.
I second.
All those in favor of accepting the Salem Township Planning Commission minutes of September 20th, 2021, as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Public comment.
Use the microphone.
State your name, where you live. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the name's Jim Krause. I live,
No, I'm just kidding. Just go ahead.
2 things. Number one, we talked about an emergency response ordinance or something like that that would allow us to go into either a solar farm or a wind farm in case of emergency. But it wasn't clear that that was actually true. I'd just like the planning commission to look into that and make sure that we have a response available to us like that.
Or what even constitutes an emergency?
Yeah. The other thing is either consumers or DTE, have they filed a request to put in solar or wind? Because, I don't know if you're aware, consumers has just decided that they're going to inflict an additional rate increase on their customers because they're going to wind and solar. And I expect the same to happen with DTE. So,
More flickering, more
Probably have to get
flickering.
our money first and sit on it for a while, then decide. Yeah.
That's almost like taxing people that drive electric cars by their mileage usage, because they're not burning fuel anymore.
I
Something like
think
that
it has
on the
less logic than that.
funky left coast.
Any other public comment? Chairperson comment, none. Adjournment 9:14. Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy New Year.
So that, I was there 2 weeks ago.
What?
Loaded. Oh my God.
I'm gonna go back.